Welcome back, everyone. It's Dr. Lindner, and we are still talking about skeletal muscle. Now, we spoke in a previous video, we spoke about the functions of muscle, the properties of muscle. We spoke about different types of muscle contraction. We spoke about origins, insertions, tendons, agonist, antagonist, synergist, innervation. Let's look at some of the histology, the muscle histology. Now, since we had mentioned tendons before, we said that muscles attach to bones by way of tendons. So in this picture, we see a tendon right here. This entire thing right here is skeletal muscle. So we can see that skeletal muscle attaches to bone, specifically the outer part of the bone known as the periosteum. Muscle attaches to bone by way of tendons. We know that the proximal attachment is the origin, and the more distal attachment is called the insertion. We know the origin is the part that stays still, and the insertion is the part that typically moves. Okay, we are going to be hearing of these three terms: endomysium, perimysium, and epimysium. We'll also hear the word fascicle. Okay, endomysium, perimysium, and epimysium. Now, simply put, I'm going to see if I could draw a simple diagram here to try and assist. So we're going to have these muscle cells like this. We have these muscle cells here, muscle fibers. And these muscle fibers are going to be surrounded by layer called an endomysium. So each of these would be an endomysium. Okay. Then, so let's put red there near the endomysium. Okay. Then we're going to have another layer around that, clustering that. We'll have another layer clustering those, and another layer clustering around those. We're going to call that the perimysium. And another name for the perimysium, they're going to make these groups or clusters called fascicles. So I'll put them the same color. And then let's use green here. Then we'll have a layer that groups all of these together, and that will be the epimysium, the green. Epimysium. Okay, so now if we look at the same thing from this picture, we'll have the endomysium, the innermost layer, number 1. Then we have a perimysium, number 2. And then we'll have surrounding all of that, the epimysium, number 3. And next to perimysium, I'll also put fascicle. We'll make those both number 2 because they're linked together. Okay. Okay. So the skeletal muscle is made up of individual cells. Those are called muscle fibers. And each muscle fiber is surrounded by an endomysium. You can have a group of 10 to 100 muscle fibers surrounded by a perimysium, also called muscle fascicle. And then a group of those fascicles are surrounded by an epimysium. So those are the three main layers. Okay, that will actually make up the skeletal muscle. Okay, so the endomysium, the perimysium, and the epimysium, they're going to extend through the muscle and they join together at, at the ends to form the attachment to bone called a tendon. Now, muscles have elasticity, but tendons are inelastic connective tissue, and they attach to the periosteum of the bone. If you have a broad, flat tendon, that's going to be called an aponeurosis. And you're going to hear aponeurosis with a few muscles, like the latissimus dorsi muscle or the lats. When you look at the origin of the latissimus dorsi, they call it the thoracolumbar aponeurosis. The origin of the latissimus dorsi is the thoracolumbar aponeurosis. It's a broad, flat tendon that spans the lower thoracic spine and all of the lumbars. So it's a broad, flat tendon. You'll see it with the insertion of the biceps brachii. You'll see it with the biceps brachii insertion, where it's called the bicipital aponeurosis. Okay? Fascia, this is the term that describes a sheet of fibrous connective tissue that's beneath the skin, and it surrounds all of your muscles, all of your organs, all the blood vessels, all of your nerves. That's called fascia. If you've ever eaten, let's say, if you're not a vegetarian and you've eaten chicken, if you've ever peeled the skin off of, let's say, a drumstick, you can see the muscle of the drumstick. But superficial to the muscle is often this thin, clear, translucent layer. That's fascia. Okay? And one of the problematic features of fascia is, let's say a person breaks their clavicle and their arm has to sit in a cast or in a sling, or they break their humerus or radius and the arm is in a sling or a cast where the elbow is bent at 90 degrees. When your elbow is bent at 90-degree angle, you have the biceps brachii here, but there's fascia that's superficial to it. And one of the problematic features of fascia is that it adapts to the position that it's held in. So if you're in a cast for 5 to 6 weeks and you're at 90 degrees and then the cast is cut off, your elbow doesn't open up easily to extend to 180 degrees because it's been held in a shortened, contracted position for the last 5 to 6 weeks. So that's one of the problematic features of fascia. It's highly adaptive to the positioning that it's held in. So that's where therapy comes into play to slowly elongate those tissues. Okay, we'll take our next break. When we come back, we'll get into the neuromuscular junction.